Sorry, everyone. I'm just trying to make this at the right level. And we have only the best technology here. 2 books and a dinner tray. Okay, so we've got 3 of you. That's not bad, as I had to change things around. How is everyone? No sound. Right, okay. Why is that? Any sound now? Okay, cool. It wouldn't have surprised me if it was me. I'm not a technological person at all. So thank you for your comments, JetBlue. I've just been reading them. I think that's placing Norwich Castle in quite high esteem, to put it with Mecca and the pyramids of Giza. But it would be nice, I'd like as many people to visit the city as they can, because I do think there's a lot of hidden gems around the place. There really are. Well, good afternoon to you. Loves coffee. Obviously, evening here, but hope you're doing well. So I haven't got any sort of schedule or anything I plan to talk about today, unlike the other one. So if anyone's got any sort of topics they think I might cover, but or questions they want to ask, just feel free. You visited in 1985. Okay, well I can't speak for the city in the 80s. 85 was 10 years before I was born. I obviously cities change over time, but I still think it's a very nice sort of quiet city compared to other ones, which is why I like it here, and I don't ever really plan on going anywhere else. Just out of curiosity, where is everyone watching from today then? Sort of local or more further afield? Just wondering. Oh, West York. Okay, yeah. That's. I've been up sort of towards York, but it was a very long time ago. I need to head back up there at one point. Oh, Portland, USA, Chicago. Okay, West Virginia, Gloucestershire. Oh, so we are a mix of all over the place. That's great. That's really great. I think I've said before, when I started this channel, I assumed I was going to get like 25 people following me, all from just around the city. So it's really nice to know it's spread across the world. That's absolutely great. So maybe I should have thought of some things to talk about on this. Oh, okay, yeah. That'd probably be the Adam and Eve down by the cathedral. Oldest pub in the city, apparently. I've only ever been in there a couple of times, to be honest. I sort of live on the other side, so it's not really just within walking distance to go and get a drink. But I'm one of my videos coming up, maybe even the next one I do. I'm planning to do sort of a going around the cathedral, visiting it as I've done with the museums, and I'm probably going to mention / stop in at the Adam and Eve if I can in that video as well, because it was. I don't know if it's the building that's there now, but I know the pub originally was built for the workers when they were building the cathedral. So it's linked to it. So it'll definitely get at least a mention in it. Yeah, I quite like the John Thurtle video as well. JetBlue. It's only very loosely based on this area. Obviously, he just sort of grew up here, but it's quite a lot of interesting stuff came out of researching that, and I do like that. As I said at the end of the one, I'm going to sort of put a bit of a cap on the murder videos for a little bit because they just get you down writing about them all the time. I want to do some more slightly light-hearted stuff for a bit before I go back to them, but we'll return to them one day. I've got several books on the topics of various murders that have happened in the area, and I'm still buying them. So, in fact, I think the bookshelf's actually looking quite good now. It's a mix of general history and more local ones for videos. So, at some point, I'll have to move on to the top shelf, and then I'll have to move my my little museum, as I call it. Book recommendations. It's a hard one because I read through books. Generally, ones that I need for videos for the channel, I don't read them start to finish. I dive into the little. Hang on one sec. I could probably explain it easier by showing you a book. So, not the one I've just thrown across the living room. So, if it was a book like Suffolk Strange but True, obviously this one it's got little bits of stories in. This kind of book I would just look at sort of, if I was doing a book on Framlingham Castle, this would be one of the bits I'd use. But so and when I do that, it's hard to remember when I finished a book, so it's sort of hard to recommend them. But there will be a book recommendation actually coming out probably tomorrow, which will be the one on the Saving Einstein book I mentioned in the last live stream. I have now finished it. Obviously, you'll get my thoughts more in depth, but really interesting. And so this is definitely on my recommendations at the moment. We stayed at 20 minutes away by train. That's good books on local true crime. So there was the one I just chucked across the living room, which I'll have to get back in a bit. It's not so much true crime, but really interesting books. He's written two. Maybe he's done more for other bits of the country. And that is by Neil R. Story, I think, possibly. So he was a former police officer in Norwich. I've got a few of his books. But he's written two, which is A Grim Almanac of Norfolk and A Grim Almanac of Suffolk. And it's just loads of little bits of, here's something that happened on this day, here's something that happened on this day. A lot of it's true crime. Some, unfortunately, probably not enough information to make videos on, but I have used it a bit. So, and it goes date by date. So you'd have, let me just try and find a fairly short one. Yeah, so you have got little bits in here. Hang on, I've got some bookmarks in this book, so obviously that was something I thought was possible video material at some point. Yeah. To be fair, I could just sit there looking at them, and that's probably not going to be a great video for everyone. Yeah, but those are ones I'd recommend at the moment for like local true crime, local to sort of bad events, really. I've got some other ones, but I'm not quite sure if they're in reach at the moment. I obviously don't want to start moving the table more than I already am. But if you just, search up the word Norfolk, Suffolk, true crime book, you'll find loads of that sort of stuff. Love my World War II videos. Oh, thank you very much. Again, a lot more of those to come. As I say, I've that last one I did on the first bombing in Norwich. I'm planning on doing probably a little series building up to the big 2 nights bombings in 1942 on the city, which I've already covered. If you've seen the one covered slightly. If you see the John Grix video, who was I think he was about 13, 14. He was one of the boys riding around on bicycles, telling the fire brigade where the bombs were landing. So that's quite an interesting one. I like that video a lot as well. But there's a lot more to come. There was local regiments were all over the world with their different battalions, and some in, obviously there was no easy places, but some were in easier places than others. We obviously had both the Norfolk Royal Norfolk Regiment at that point and the Suffolk Regiment took part on D-Day and the fighting towards Germany. Norfolk Regiment was at Kohima and I think Impala as well, up in Burma against the Japanese in 1944. And a lot of their territorial battalions on both were captured when Singapore fell, and obviously we're then on the Burma Death Railway. So Thailand Death Railway, wasn't it? I want to make a video on them at some point, because unfortunately I think the people who would have known more about him, they're now gone, so I don't have much information on him. But a relative of mine was also captured at Singapore, and he was he worked on the railway as well. I'm not sure who he served with, so it could have been one of those territorial battalions, because he was from Norfolk. So, but it'd be nice to sort of look at that quite a bit. Just back to that comment about staying at the Reedham campsite. I think you were quite fortunate with the trains there. I think they may have cut them back a bit. I grew up, didn't grow up in Norwich. I grew up in the countryside, and it wasn't so much trains, it was buses. But the village I grew up in was awful. There was one bus to the city at about 7 a.m. and one back at about 9 o'clock at night. And that was the only way you're actually getting into Norwich. So very thankful I moved into the city. All right. Anything else anyone would like to talk about? Because I'm sort of trying to think if there's anything I'd say. That's what yeah, that would make sense. Always do proper research into where you're looking at. A couple of months ago, me and my family went up to Derbyshire, and we weren't, like, where we stayed was absolutely fine. And to be fair, I think it was some cross wires, because I was told we were staying in Matlock. But we were actually staying in Matlock, Bath, which is like a haven for bikers, for people that don't know. And it was just constant bike noise the whole time. Absolutely lovely holiday. Really enjoyed it. Taken loads of pictures and videos. And made loads of notes while I was there. I'm partly considering maybe doing some videos on the places I visit. Obviously, it's out of Norfolk by a long, long way, but I don't know. I still think they count as the visiting videos. But if any of you think that's a good or bad idea, let me know and we'll consider if we're doing that or not. Sorry, I'm just going to leave the camera one moment so I can go and grab that book I basically threw into the hallway by mistake. Sorry about that, but you should know by now this channel is far from professional. So the book I actually was trying to show before I chucked it was, I haven't actually started looking at this, with Suffolk murders. So there should be some in here once I get back to those. So that'll be good. Just went to Matlock. Yeah, we didn't find much in Matlock itself, unfortunately, but like the area was really great. Where did we go? Like Heights of Abraham, Chatsworth House. We went to those sort of places. If I do these videos, I probably won't do one on Chatsworth House. There's absolutely nothing I can say on that place that a well-produced television series that's been running for several years couldn't say much better. Hello, Mother Bear. You didn't miss much. You missed me accidentally throwing a book, talking about some stuff that I'm researching at the moment. That's about it. At the moment, we're just generally discussing all sorts of stuff. So if you've got any questions or stuff you'd like to know, just feel free to ask away. Join in. We're all just sort of talking, basically. I didn't get into the in-betweeners. Exactly like the right era where I was probably the right age to find it funny, but I never got the humor in it. And I've got a feeling in like 20 years' time, the in-betweeners is going to be looked on as like my generation's on the buses of just, yeah, I can see why some people found that funny, but a lot of people, it will just lose it as time goes on, I think. But that's fair. You know, everyone likes different things. I'm sure I like some shows that people can't stand. So, but have you ever thought of doing a video on the Adam and Eve pub? Sort of, yes. I'll probably do a separate video on it at some point. But I was saying before you arrived, mate, it's either going to be my next video or the one video after that. I'm planning on going to the cathedral to do the sort of visiting videos like I've done for the museums. And obviously I'll be mentioning the Adam and Eve there because it was originally built for the workers who were building the cathedral. So it will get a mention in that one. And one day I may do a video on it itself. I think part of it, and something I sort of need to remember, is, you know, for what it is, my channel is growing, and I think I need to remember that I probably could message some people that run these kind of places and say, hey, could I come down and make a video? You know, this is what I do, and there's a chance I'll get more access to stuff than just turning up. But I'm just not that kind of person. But I'm going to sort of try and work my way in it. Thought on Game of Thrones. I've never actually started to watch it, to be honest with you. I've heard really good things, but I heard it ended quite disappointingly. But yeah, I'm interested in medieval history. Quite a lot. Well, obviously, there's a lot of medieval history in every city in Britain, basically, other than Milton Keynes, obviously. I do want to touch on more of the city's medieval history. It's something I need to get a bit more general knowledge on before I start making videos on it. So, but that is coming. Ever visited the pub The Nelson at Wells by the Sea? No, I haven't. I'm not often in North Norfolk, to be honest with you. Probably make my way up there at some point soon when I can. But I know that sounds like quite an interesting one. Yeah. So yeah. No, I'm gonna try and remember that. I'm gonna make a note of that one because that does sound quite interesting, Wendy. Yeah. No, not by the sea anymore. No. Yeah. Although I think increasingly more and more of North Norfolk is getting quite by the sea, isn't it? Much as a lot of the Suffolk coast as well. Do you have a nice speaking? Oh, thank you very much. I do try my best. I know my recordings at times are a bit fuzzy, but I think that's not down to me speaking. It's down to how I edit things and not doing it properly. And, you know, if you've listened to something like 6 or 7 times, you start to think the pauses in it are longer than they actually are. So I'll be sitting there going, oh God, that goes on forever. I'll cut that. And then, of course, when you are listening to it the first time, that 5-second pause is now a 2-second pause. And that makes a big difference to your enjoyment. But no, thank you very much on that one. I sometimes think maybe the channel would benefit from me having a Norfolk accent, but I never have, you know, so it's just not going to be. So I've just remembered something, thinking of books. this is not a book that I will do like a proper recommendation for on the channel, because it's not connected to what the channel is in any way, shape, or form. But I would recommend this book to anyone. So I think it's The Mimi and Tutu Go Forth. It's a true story. It's set in the First World War about the fighting in Central Africa. It's a very comedic book, and it's like eccentricities galore. So if you can get your hands on that, do. It's just this most bizarre mission of this mishmash of Navy and Army they sent to sort of take these boats through the jungle to fight on Lake Tanganyika. And the guy command of it is just borderline insane and a compulsive liar the whole time. It's just funny read. You know, you'll be smiling all the way through it, especially at some of his anecdotes of why he's only a lieutenant commander so long into his career. Yeah, like, it's not spoiling anything in the book, but at one point he abandons his ship because he wants to go and have breakfast in this hotel, and he's sitting there having breakfast as his ship is torpedoed. And sort of, oh well, that's me in trouble, isn't it? So no, I'd recommend that one. You know, it's a sort of generally fairly sort of, I'd say eccentric is probably the best word to describe the team. I must say Norfolk people come across. Well, technically, I'm from Suffolk, so no offence taken. Yeah, born in Suffolk but raised in Norfolk, so I like both counties equally. Obviously, there's the rivalry, but I see it more as a joke than anything else. You know, it's a line on a map at times, really. First World War was just horrible. Europe never recovered. In many ways, you know, we are still living at times in the ramifications of the First World War, especially, you know, within Europe and without, you know, the borders that were drawn in places in the Middle East, and that it all does stem from the end of the First World War at times. And yeah, when, you know, and I don't think there's basically any family in Britain certainly that didn't lose members. You know, I think my mother's side of the family, was it something like, it's definitely 3, because I well, not their graves, because their bodies were never found. They're on memorials. It's like 3 or 4 from all brothers were killed in the First World War. You know, was 2 killed at Passchendaele and 1 killed at the Somme. Rather grimly, I'm trying to remember the dates off the top of my head. I'll have to look into it again. Rather grimly, I think they were about 2 days apart from each other. So there was the one killed on the Somme, obviously not during the Battle of the Somme. This was later in 1917. But he was killed then, and then 2 days later, both his brothers were killed as well. So yeah, you just can't imagine what it, because they probably received the news pretty much at the same day that all 3 were gone. That's fairly horrific to think about. Yeah, so it's there's another picture I'll have to upload, but I was at the it was the last Heritage Week they have in Norwich every year. Was in the Norwich School at the cathedral, and they've got plaques on the walls to like all the students that were killed in the First World War and the Second as well. And you know, obviously they were all bright young men who they thought were going to be officers, and they were just, you know, taken out. And there's other books a bit out of reach. It's I believe it's a care home now, but it was a school in Norwich, like another private school. I was reading this book about it. The headmaster's son was killed in his first 2 minutes in the trenches. Basically, they arrived into their first position, first day. Someone was, I think, hit by a sniper. He went to pull them back, and then he was hit. You know, it's just one of those things. That just came in. What family what are you talking about? We're just generally talking at the moment. We've sort of got onto the First World War a bit and talking about that type of stuff. So welcome and hello to you and everyone else in Texas. Oh, the Italian. Okay. It's the Italian front's not taught much in Britain, but it's something I want to look into more, definitely. I'm awful at English. English was never my strongest subject at school, but I knew you meant cavalry, so that's fine. If you return to, yeah, I looked at getting some of that sort of Nelson's Blood rum, and I just found it online. And just the shipping was really expensive, so I may try and find it somewhere else. But it'd be interesting to try. He was in Turkey as well. Okay, right. As I say, the Italian army in the First World War is not something I know a huge amount about. I tend to sort of narrow down what I look at, but it's interesting quite a lot. Certainly something I do want to see more of as I can, and yeah. Sadly, the Coleman's mustard shop is now long gone. Same as much as all of Coleman's now. It's a shame. I wish that had stayed on, or they'd moved it to one of the museums, but it just didn't happen, unfortunately. I think it's a shame, but time has to move on, I guess, and you can't just keep, you know. It's one of the things with Norwich, and it's one of the things I love about the city is it does tend to roll with the punches. The amount of times it's changed industries is weird. So, obviously I don't know everything, but there was mining under the city. There's chalk mines that still occasionally collapse in on themselves. There was that, and then it was a little bit of a mill town at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and then obviously labour was cheaper up north, so that's where all the jobs went, and the city suffered. Then the Colemans, they actually brought the city back for a while, and now I guess we're much more tourism and students than anything. But Norwich reinvents itself, which I quite like, and just leaves more history to look at, basically, which is great. Half hour. Okay, cool. So if anyone's there, got something they want to put in chat, just jump straight in. We're all very, very open here, so we'll answer them as I can. The murder stories are interesting. Thank you. They're quite interesting to research. Very, very bleak at times, as you can probably imagine, and they bring the views in quite a lot. I can fully understand why a lot of people just make their channel on murder videos, but I couldn't do it. I just not that kind of person. There's some I want to go back and redo. Now I've got more information on things. I think I've said this before, but at some point I want to remake the Tabernacle Street one, because one, it's awfully edited and it ruins the video. It really does. And plus I've got some more information on it now. So. Ket definitely planned. I have big plans for Ket's Rebellion. I'm probably going to do a regular presentation on it, but in my pipe dream world, when I've grown the channel a bit more, I'd love to get the funding and do like a proper documentary on Ket's Rebellion, because I don't think it's ever been done, or if it has, it's not something I've ever seen. And the way the city tends to overlook its history on Ket is something that wants to be done. I'd love to do a full, proper hour-and-a-half documentary. Here's where it started. Here's where we think that some of the battles took place, because obviously, like the Battle of Dussingdale, no one really knows where it happened. Look at what the rebels would have been armed with versus what the king's men were armed with, the government's men, I should say, were armed with, because the rebels thought they were fighting for the king, which was just a weird rebellion, and only Norfolk would have a rebellion against the king's troops when you're fighting for the king. Yeah, but no, I'd love to do that at some point. Tell us about the Singh family. Would that be the one by the Singh family? Do you mean Elverdon? That's the only sort of Singh family I can think of. I can never remember his name fully, unfortunately. But yeah, that's definitely on the list because that's a very interesting and overlooked weird thing in history, that there was just this effectively Indian prince living in Suffolk for quite a few years. And I don't know who's in charge of the Elverdon estate anymore, but I believe there's somewhere in the woods, probably fairly dilapidated now, there's a temple he had built. At least people I know have always told me it used to be there. I assume it hasn't been completely demolished. Sorry, Andy, is that how we're? Sorry, I'm really bad with the username. So was it both of them were fighting on the sort of the German side, or was one American, one German? Just curiosity on that, because obviously there was German immigration to America was absolutely huge. In fact, wasn't it at one time like the second spoken language in America after both? Okay, right. Oh, that is interesting. I'm yeah. So I'm unaware of any like properly foreign ancestors. I mean, like my mum's family, far enough back is Irish, but they came over. I think during the Irish Civil War or around that sort of time they came over. No, that sounds interesting. That's something. So if you were to look into that, I'd love you to keep us updated on it, because. Oh, okay. Oh, right. So you're right. That's fine, because I was reading that comment a bit more, saying they lived in London. That was quite a bit, because there was this quite a big German population in Britain before the First World War, and I think it's largely overplayed how big the Christmas truce was. But I know there is some instances. I think that the Suffolk Regiment, they were a part of it, and one of the troops they meant actually had a girlfriend who lived in Suffolk, which I think he was like giving them letters to send to her because he couldn't get them through, which was, I think, quite a remarkable story. Oh, you've lived. Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. See, I'd probably say this in every live stream, but you always wish you'd ask more questions of people, because my family history, there's not huge amount I know how to piece together, but I'd love to do it. So do it more at some point. Yeah, as well. Sorry. In my opinion, I think there's obviously, unless you really don't want to, that's absolutely fine. But generally, I think there's no real reason why basically everyone isn't making videos they want to make these days. It's so easy. I started off with nothing, and now I've got nothing and a microphone, which is great. I was glad. Yeah, I had a very chatty grandfather. Got a lot. Well, I've said before, I got my love from history from him and his stories of growing up in the Second World War. So, yep, didn't look. Yep, that's the first name. I never remember. But yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Who was at Elverdon and had the yeah, he was really friendly with Queen Victoria and that, and lived at Elverdon. Yeah, again, he's on the list. Yeah, definitely on the list to do a video about him at some point. Probably have to be a little bit more research done into that, because obviously there's a lot of Indian names that I want to pronounce correctly, or as correctly as I can. in those types of videos. It was the same when I did the one on the sinking of the Magdeburg. I'm I love the video, but I'm not happy with some of my pronunciations, and I wish I'd at one of those sort of sod's laws moments that I made the video, and then I think about 4 days later, where I work hired a couple of Indian people, and I could have asked, can you please tell me how I'm pronouncing these names? But oh well, you can't predict the future, can you? That's great, and I wish more people would do that because there's so much stuff that's now lost because people aren't passing on histories of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff I've found for the channel, and you don't see it just generally walking around Norwich. There's plaques for certain things, but there's plaques for not others, and sort of going back to the Robert Kett one. There's like 4 things in the entire city I can think of that commemorate him. There's a plaque at the castle that just says this is where he was executed. There's a pub named after him. I'm not even sure if it's still open, to be honest. There's a hill named after him the pub sits on. And there was a high school, but that's now been renamed. So again, that's one bit of his history wiped out, but I wish more places would pay attention. Yeah, a fair amount of work goes into the videos, but it's one of those things. If you find it fun, you're not you don't see it as work, do you? So it's that's nice on that one. I want to start looking into more of some of the buildings in the city of Norwich as well, because there's some really great ones, but it's getting into them because what they're now used for is just going to make it difficult. It's obviously I don't want to see buildings sitting empty and that, but there's one in a place called Tombland, if you're not from the city, near the cathedral. It's known as the Samson and Hercules because it's got these 2 statues out front. They're not the original, but it's been so much over its time. It's like Merchant House, it was a swimming pool, it was a nightclub, and now it's a mortgage broker's. And it's that seems a bit of a waste of a building, but I'm glad it's that rather than standing empty. And just loads of stuff like that around there. Private deep dive into Yeah, I'm trying to think if I can think of any sort of good books or anything to get you started just on the history of Norwich. I don't think I've got any books just generally on the city that I can push forward for you. No, nothing's really coming to mind, but if I do find any, I will mention it in a video. But I'd also say probably if you're looking into like private deep dives of Norwich and that, like the historical societies and the record offices are probably good people to try and get in touch with. They they're the people that keep that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm just taking another look. I've got a lot of books that are like, either on like murders in the city or the city during the Second World War, but I don't have any that are just generally on the city. I'll have to look in the bookshop I use a lot next time I'm near it. Might be able to do it tomorrow after work. Yeah, tomorrow's Monday, isn't it? Yeah, they should still be open at that point. It's all right. My typing's not not great either. That's why I'm sort of glad I can talk rather than responding in comments like I normally do. Hi, Chums fan 1243. How are you? Good. Glad to hear you are well. We're just sort of having a general chat. There's no real sort of structure to this. So if you've got any questions or anything you want to ask or any comments, just write them in like everyone else is doing, and we're sort of just going through that basically. So of course, I don't want to make this one-sided. If anyone's got any interesting things about where they live, they yeah. History. The steps were formed in 1997. Oh, oh yeah, the band. I was trying to work out. I was just standing there going, "What steps is he talking about? Which steps could these be?" Yeah, the band. Yeah, I'm assuming you mean the band. It seems the right time. Yeah. So as I was saying, if you've got anyone's got any interesting little facts about where they live in the world, put them in the comments. I always like hearing that sort of stuff. Yep. Well, Princess Diana was, of course, born in Norfolk. She was born at Sandringham. Probably not a topic I'm going to cover. I think that's a little bit too too close to modern times for me. I do try and want to keep separation in my videos from stuff going on. So, but maybe one day, but not in the foreseeable. Love triangle murders are good. I'm assuming you mean in terms of videos, not the actual events. Yeah, there's quite a few of those. There's in one of those grim almanacs I was pointing out earlier. I think there's separated by several years, but two like love triangle murders that were virtually identical to each other. I might cover them one day, but I don't think there's a huge amount of information on them because it is very much he discovered them. He shot both of them. He shot himself, both of them. So I'm not sure there's going to be a huge amount on that, but maybe I can dig into it. Watching your channel since the beginning, I love your style at present. I just had to check what that village was because it's not one I've heard of. Yeah, I can cover that, Andy. I'll make a note of it to put it onto my lists. Let's say there's going to be a short break on the murder videos for a while. Okay, so I believe the gibbet is in Norwich Castle. Right, that might be a good one to wait on a little bit anyway for when the castle reopens properly, because with any luck, the gibbet will be displayed in the dungeon. That's the word. Have you listened to any audio tapes? No, I've never heard of those, to be honest with you, and I'll definitely again I'll make another note of that one. Yeah, I think that sums up most sort of murder cases, isn't it? Interesting and gruesome. got quite a lot of BBC facts from 1997. I'll give you that for sure. Cool. I did not know that's when BBC Online launched. I assumed it was a bit later than that. Uh, Trying to think of my family. Oh yeah, I was very young, but I'm trying to think. I don't even think my family had a computer in 1997. I think we were early 2000s. We got our first one that I can recall anyway. Yeah, people have always, always really been the same deep down. Um, People go on about, how more civilized people were at, certain points in history. But yeah, if you said anything wrong to them, you were then having a duel with them. So, in fact, that's what I want to cover at some point, the Burr Street duel. Again, I need the castle to reopen properly for that because part of the remains of one of the people is in there. And sorry, the screen paused and I thought we were broken. Fingers crossed, the castle keep it on display. Road named after your family in Galston-on-Sea. Okay, that's. Was there a particular reason they got a road named after? Was that where a lot of them lived on that road, or did they do something for the town? On the armor. I'd need help on that one because I'm not a armory person particularly, or a fashion person. But if I could find people to help me out with that, that's definitely something I'd do, or maybe even collaborate with other YouTubers who do that more sort of thing. There's what I like to call wide history and small history, and I think small history is people that focus on what went on the armor, what went on the dresses, the buttons, that kind of thing. Equally important, but just not a road I go down. But I'd be more than willing to work with people for that. Of course, it was an Incas held. I think the problem with a lot of those types of things get lost over the periods, don't they? Especially depending on things that can happen, fires and that. Just I think quite a lot of Norwich's history records at points were destroyed with the library caught fire in the 90s. And of course, I'm trying to remember which medal it is. It's either the military medal or the military cross. There is virtually no information left on how people won them from the First World War, because where they were stored was completely destroyed in the Second World War. So there's just no, the citation of what they got it for is nearly all of them are gone, which I just think is incredible. That there's however many thousands were awarded, they're just not available anymore. As I've said to other people, that sort of thing. I think if you were probably the best type of people to contact is find if there's a Kirkdale Historical Society or that type of thing. They're generally a font of information on that kind of thing and can probably at least point you in the right direction, I would say. That's all right. Well out of my area of any form of expertise, but what do you think? I'm not sure who that is off the top of my head. I'm awful with names in real life, let alone for people on YouTube. But yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with sort of like small, quick videos as long as what you're saying is correct. I do have a problem with a couple of the bigger channels that make history videos that do them like cartoons of them, because they often don't get stuff right. Even with the limited stuff I know, what they're saying is, either long debunked or was never true. Oh, they all lived on there. Okay, that would make sense. Well, that's nice. I like that. That's how road names sometimes come, not from just from regular people that lived on them, not generals and that kind of stuff. Where to find out the medals of the Indian? That's well beyond my type of remit on that one. No, I think the only way you could either look at that is start to contact the like the actual museums in question, the Imperial War Museum, that kind of stuff. But I don't know, well beyond my remit. Well, thank you very much. It's been great talking to you. You've you've brought some really nice points to the chat as well. So really good to see you. Hopefully you can join us whenever I get a chance to do the next live stream. Yeah, I know. I'm not mentioning their names purely because I can't remember their names, but no, I don't like them. There was one that did a video on the disappearance of the at the time, the Norfolk Regiment at Gallipoli, and they just lent heavily into was it a miracle? No, it wasn't. Just it was very nice for you to join us as well, Daniel. So thank you. So we're coming up on an hour now anyway, so we're probably not going to go on very much longer. If I had more to say, I'd be able to, but we'll probably wrap it up within the next probably 10 minutes or so, unless there's other stuff people want us to keep talking about. But I do tend to think an hour and a bit is the sort of best time to keep live streams. There's some of channels I subscribe to I want to watch, but they're like 4.5 hours, and I just can't bring myself to sit through that amount. So Thank you for joining us, Chums fan. When is your next presentation coming out? Um, Maybe week after next. I'm stuck between two ideas. One I'm partway through writing. The other one won't need as much writing, and I could probably knock the writing out in about a day and a half, then the visit of the place, and then doing it. Just like, yeah. Well, once you've veered off facts, you're no longer a history channel, as far as I'm concerned. You're just telling fiction at that point. That's quite all right, Wendy. As I say, we're coming to an end now anyway. But thank you for joining us, and I hope your dog's doing well. What kind of dog have you got, just out of curiosity, before you go? Yeah, so my next presentation, probably a week after next at this point. I know I need to sort of step it up and do more than I do, but I'm just busy with other stuff. I am planning on maybe doing some more, those YouTube shorts. I think I can probably get a couple of things from around the city to make some of those to fill up the gaps. Plus, there'll be a book recommendation coming out in the next couple of days as well. So hopefully that'll tide you over till the next proper presentation. No, well, I'd say it's quite all right. I'm so glad there's many of you who have joined us. It's been really nice. So nice way to spend a Sunday evening. Oh, collie pup. Okay, that's quite a lively dog then when it wants to be. My family had greyhounds until recently, so much more sort of a laid back type dogs. Right. Anyone else? Anything they wish to sort of discuss briefly before we go? Because we're about time we'll start wrapping up, I think. Yeah, I will have a great week. I hope you do as well, and I hope everyone does really. So, right. Well, if there's nothing else from anyone, I think we might start calling it quits here as well. It's 1 minute to it being an hour, so I think that's more than enough time. So I hope everyone's had a really good week so far, and have a great week next week. I'll probably try and do another one of these next month. I'm going to try and do one live stream a month. Basically, I think that's the easiest way to do it at the moment. I've got some time booked off at the beginning of the month, so I'll try and get it equally there. And I'm sorry if this falls at a bit of an awkward time for people, but it's the problem with time zones, isn't it? We just can never line something up for everyone. But thank you for everyone who has joined us, and thank you to everyone who's watching the replay on this as well. Really great chatting, some great conversations, and I hope you all have a good time wherever you are in the world.